Please bring up the director, Kirby Dick. Kirby, since the film came out in theaters, what has it been like to experience the reactions of these colleges and young people who get galvanized around?
Every time it goes to a college or university or high school, discussion started that hadn't started before. Activism starts. Actually, at St. Mary's, they never had any activism on this issue, and now there's a real core of activists continually challenging that school.
Question back there.
Are there any civil lawsuits against specific administrators?
The question was, if there have been any civil lawsuits against specific administrators for being negligent in this area?
I think the lawsuits are against the schools, and then, and yes, there have been. It's not a lot, given all the, that we know this is going on in every campus. These schools fight really hard. They fight really hard, and we really feel like rather than FSU fighting this lawsuit, they should acknowledge they have a problem and work to correct it, because the more they go after the survivor, the more they insist that they're doing something right, that they're doing everything right, all they're doing is silencing survivors. And if survivors don't come forward, there's no way to reform the process, because those people, if survivors don't come forward, these repeat offenders will just assault again and again.
This question in the very, very back.
I'm a full-time tenured faculty member, and I want to know what I can do as a faculty member to help my students. I'm also the mother of a 16-year-old girl.
So the
What
question.
I want to know as a consumer, what do I?
Yeah. So the question, if you didn't hear, is this woman says that she's a tenured faculty member and also the mother of a 16-year-old. What should she be thinking about from those two perspectives?
There hasn't been much research on, what the prevalence is at community colleges. I mean, the first thing I would do is urge, and I actually think, the Enough is Enough bill passed by Governor Cuomo also applies to your school as well, I believe. And so I believe, no, actually I don't think so. I don't think climate surveys are mandated in that. Climate surveys are anonymous surveys of the student body to determine the prevalence of sexual assault and how comfortable students feel with reporting those assaults. And all schools should be doing this, because you cannot even evaluate the nature and extent of the problem without having those numbers. When these surveys come out, they should be made public. So if your school isn't in the process of doing that, they should absolutely do that. That's the very, very, very first step that should be done. There's also an organization called Faculty Against Rape, which has members on, I think, hundreds of schools now. I would definitely join them. Carolyn Heldman, who's in the film, is one of the co-founders. There's somebody up in an upstate school in New York that's also a co-founder. So that's one, I would do that. I mean, this is the thing that's really shocked me, is how silent faculty have been on this issue. And, I understand, it's in many ways, institutions can oppress any kind of can suppress criticism of of their institution. They're fine with their faculty members critiquing sexual assault around the world, other kinds of injustices in the United States. But if it goes on their campus, it can be very difficult to speak about that. I think you need to politically organize on your campus. You need to get together with other faculty members and start pushing. And because institutions don't change without pressure. They just won't. That's the nature of any institution. So, and then what happens, is when students become aware that faculty are pressuring the school, that's when you start having survivors come forward. That's when that really stimulates activism, because students are looking for some side of, not so much leadership, but kind of that there's an element of protection for them to move. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd start tomorrow. I'd call people that you're close to and say, well, how do we do this? What's the best way? And get in touch with, people at Faculty Against Rape, and, get those discussions going. Now, as far as your daughter, I mean, I think you should definitely go around to schools. When you go around to schools, research those schools before, find out what their policies is, find out what the history of assaults are, and raise tough questions in those. And don't, if somebody raises it, somebody tries to pass it off, just keep the conversation going, because pretty soon other parents are going to be asking these questions too. That's another form of just pressure, and also at the same time it gives you information about that school. Now, it's hard to get a lot of information on the tour, but you know, you can keep pushing, keep a dialogue going, start an email chain, and I think you'll start getting a sense if you're really, one of the things that I always think is the best way to evaluate a school is to find the activists on that campus. They will tell you exactly what is going on. And so if you decide, I want to go to this campus, and you're concerned about sexual assault, which I think everyone should be, you know, many schools that have, you know, some form of activism. Sometimes they'll have activists, faculty, activists, administrators even. Sometimes the timeline coordinator is really good, and they'll, you know, might give you off the record, you know, exactly what's going on that campus. So it's all about research, and it will take time, but it's worth it, I think.
We have time for one more question. I'm going to take this one in the back, then we can step outside if Kirby has time. We can talk a little more. So this woman was referring to Kirby and Amy's last film, The Invisible War, which was about rape culture in the military. And I think you were asking if you took inspiration from that movie to make this movie, and you know, is there? And I should say that Kirby made an earlier film called Twist of Faith, which is about a survivor of abuse in the Catholic Church. So you know, you do have this kind of cluster of films.
Right. Well, yeah, no, I think it is, in a sense, a project. I mean, Amy and I did not set out to make you know, another film about sexual assault after we made The Invisible War. But when we took the film around to campuses, we just, you know, people started just talking to us that this is a problem here, and we started getting emails. And that had never happened to us before. I mean, the people were just, you know, imploring us to make this film, and so we decided, you know, we could see that it was just bubbling up, and we decided we have to make this film. We're working on several projects right now. One is still in this sort of arena. I mean, you know, I am so shocked. I mean, you know, bringing this film out has gone into some real headwinds, because there's this, you know, people, for example, have, you know, there's this denialism out there that rape is as extensive as it is, and there's a whole cadre of journalists and, you know, just a range of people, trolls, everybody who are just, and it's a sizable percentage of the population that, for example, are doubting these statistics. And, you know, they're not scientists, they're not sexual assault experts, but, you know, they just, on their own, you know, they're just spreading this misinformation. It's very similar to the whole issue around climate change and these denialists. It's, you know, how that, you know, that's hugely impacted our planet, and this is having a great impact on our societies. So this film is, I mean, I think this film is, you know, I mean, The Invisible War really accomplished a lot, but I see this film sort of more in a kind of a step-by-step way, college by college, person by person, you know, starting to approach what The Invisible War accomplished. And I hope that, you know, it just continues, because, you know, I mean, this has been going on for so long. I mean, this is something that we all should be addressing as a society. Is why sexual assault is not taken as seriously as any other crime. I mean, that's a shame on our society.
We have to wrap this up. Hunting Ground has one other screening left in the festival. Kirby won't be here for that, but if you want to tell your friends. And also, it's going to be on CNN next Thursday, so please spread the word about that. Thank you very much.